Welcome to DECODE. Today is Black Friday, so the Christmas season officially begins. And in this same spirit of giving, I have prepared my own gift to you, the DECODE community. Starting today and all the way to Christmas Day, I'm gonna be posting 10 short videos. Each video focuses on one simple but powerful idea for a better 2026, a mental model to become the best version of ourselves. So please subscribe because I don't think you want to miss these episodes. So let's go with our first video. Our first idea is the fight or the struggle between opinions and facts. Take a look around. Our world is very loud. Everybody seems to be entitled to an opinion about everything, and we are of course more than willing to discuss those in social media, sometimes friendly and sometimes in a non-friendly way. Everybody seems to be convinced in the modern world that they are right, that they are in possession of the truth. We live in an era where opinions seem to matter much more than facts. And of course, whenever we tell somebody, hey, this thing you said is actually wrong or it's a lie, they feel insulted. They feel like you've hurt their feelings. But here's the harsh truth. Reality and facts, they don't care about how you feel. Gravity doesn't care if you feel offended by it. A virus is not going to stop spreading just because you don't believe in it. Or math does not care about your self-esteem. We have forgotten something very, very simple, which is that facts stay true whether you like them or not. And still, we live in an era where people, or some people, are refusing facts. We live in a time when pseudoscience seems to be spreading faster than science. And how can such thing be? Well, there's three reasons. The first is that social media gives us all equal credibility. Before social media, you could listen to a guy and say, oh, he's a doctor, or a woman and say, oh, she's a scientist, and that gave them reputation, that gave them a quality of authority. In the era of social media, it seems like any anonymous account can post something and be in equal ground as an expert on that field. Second problem is that algorithms, as I will explain later, they amplify outrage because it makes more money. And then when you combine 1 and 2, you get the third leg of the table, which is that social media has become a factory of stupidity because that's what actually works and that's what actually they do promote. Today, for a lot of people, it seems like their feelings and their opinions have become a compass, some sort of moral compass, but feelings are not a compass and they have never been. The scientific method is the only compass of truth that humanity has been able to agree on through the centuries. And here's a very scary thought. A society that disregards facts and science becomes impossible to govern, fragile and terrifyingly easy to manipulate, as we've seen lately. And so on this video, I'm going to focus on 4 lessons. First, I'm going to explain why does this happen? Why do we believe opinions as if they were the truth? Second, how do algorithms turn this outrage and these emotions and feelings into profit? Third, why pseudoscience wins? Not because it's smarter, but because it gives answers faster. And fourth, of course, what you can do and what I can do not to drown in this sea of chaos where everybody seems to be inventing their own truth. So let's go. I'm going to start by explaining why we tend to believe any stupid thing we read on social media. Everything starts in the mind. Research shows that we have 2 systems working side by side in our brain. Call them system number 1 and system number 2. System 1 is the fast one, it's the effortless one, and it's based on retrieval, it's based on emotion and intuition. I'm going to give you a very quick example of system 1 at work. 2 plus 2. Immediately, 4 came to your mind. Were you doing the math? Nah, not really. It's just a pattern lookup. You've heard 2 plus 2 so many times that the answer is 4 with very little effort. So that's system number 1. Now let's move on to system number 2. This is the slow one. It is based on analysis, logic, computation. Let me give you again one example. 17 times 24. Most likely when you've heard 17 times 24, you have felt a little bit of a cold sweat and you have felt a little bit of stress because that's your brain waking up and saying, oh, okay, this requires work. That is system number 2. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman described them as the fast brain and the slow brain in his classic book, Thinking Fast and Slow. So the fast one is emotional, impulsive, and error prone because of the speed. And the second one is logical, more powerful, and of course, less prone to errors. So guess what? Guess which one of these systems is the one used by default? Of course, system 1, the fast one, the feelings one, the one that makes mistakes. And that's the reason why we feel something before we understand that something. We decide our opinion about something before we can verify the facts. And we believe things faster when we are able to doubt about those things. Why do we do this? Because of economy of effort. Think about this. Our brain is about 2% of our total body weight. So, it's a very small part of our body. But still, it consumes 20% of the energy of the body. Deep reasoning, analysis, doubt, verification, all that runs on calories. And of course, because we have evolved for sustainability and survival, our brain has mechanisms not to overthink things, and that's the reason why there's system 1 and system 2. System 2 will only engage when it's needed so that we save energy, and that's what Kahneman calls the law of least effort. And so that's the reason why our emotions feels like facts, because sometimes we receive an input and we get system 1 triggered right away before system 2 is able to even wake up. And then that first reaction that we get, it feels like a fact because it appears instantly. It doesn't require proof or effort, and then we read a headline on a newspaper or on social media, and maybe we feel anger, and it's a trap we all fall into, the dumb, the smart, the educated, the uneducated. It doesn't matter because our brain, from a neurological and a biological standpoint, works the same way. And then when emotions feel like reality and anger feels like the truth, you get the modern world, where we share nonsense just because it triggered the right emotion. And again, this is not a problem of people, not a problem of culture, it's a problem of neurology. We are wired in such a way in which a lie can trigger an emotion much faster than we can understand if that lie is true or not. And in the age of social media, where everything goes at light speed, of course, this feature of our brain has created a catastrophe. So now let's look at science in comparison, which is pure system 2. Science is not an opinion, it's a process of structured thinking. And it's slow, it's careful, it's patient. Science doesn't shout, it doesn't need emotions. It just says, oh, let's wait, let's check, let's repeat the experiment. We don't know. We need to verify again. Compare that with what I just said about emotions. Those are instant. They require no data, no effort, no method, just a feeling. And that's why emotions in our brain moves at light speed, and then science or evidence crawls like a snail. From this perspective, pseudoscience wins not because it's smarter or because it gives better solutions, just because it's faster. It arrives faster at the station and it takes over our brain before the rational mind can kick in. Let me give you an example. A flat earther can invent a theory in 5 seconds. They can come on TV and say, I don't see the curve, hence the earth is flat. Sure, science doesn't work that way. Let's compare that with how long it took for humans to actually understand that the Earth was a sphere. It had to be the Greeks observing the mast of the ships as they moved toward the horizon. And then we had poor Eratosthenes in Egypt, who took 2 sticks and compared the length of the shadows. And with that, through hundreds of years, we reached the conclusion that actually the Earth is a sphere. So you see, one is instant, immediate, emotional. The other one, which is science, is going to be slow, it's going to be careful. But of course, when it reaches conclusions, those conclusions are true because they're backed by experiments and replication. But that's the problem. While we wait for science to reach their conclusions, a kid will go on TikTok and say, oh, NASA is lying to you, the Earth is flat. And he will achieve millions of views overnight. And that generates a problem, which is those millions of views become very hard to stop. There's even a name for this, which is Brandolini's law, or the law of the asymmetry of bullshit. Brandolini's law, what it states is actually the energy required to stop a lie is much higher than the energy required to begin that lie. Because to begin that lie, you just need to press one button, but then that lie spreads to 1 million locations. And then to break that lie down, you need to go to that 1 million locations one by one to stop it. And by the time you have finished with that 1 million, there's another 1 million, because it's kind of like a snowball effect. You see, that's the idea of Brandolini's law, that there's an asymmetry in the effort required to create bullshit and to stop that bullshit. There's a classic story that I want to share with you that proves the power of Brandolini's law. It's a classic story that you may have heard if you're kind of like my age, about alligators in the sewers of New York City. This is a fun one. Back in the day, people believed that modern people, posh people, had bought alligators as pets in New York City, and then because they got tired of the alligators, when they grew, they threw them down the toilet. And so they ended up in the sewers below New York City. And so because of this, there was this rumor that there was actually alligators living in the sewers of New York City. And that went on for many years. Then if you dig down that hoax and that false story, the origins of that story are actually in the 1930s. Check it out, 90 years ago, roughly, right? And it became with newspapers actually, telling the story and exaggerating that story. And then it took decades of, biologists and the police and, expeditions to actually prove that this was not true. You see, that's Brandolini's law. Somebody started a lie, and then it takes a long time for that lie to die down. But the fun part is, and here I want to show you system 1 and system 2, which is, would you share this story of alligators in New York City? Of course, I would. It's a fun story. It sounds kind of cool. It's emotional, so I would click, retweet or share or whatever. But now let's pause for 5 seconds and let's look at this carefully using system 2. Okay, how likely is it that alligators are living in the sewers of New York City? Have you been to New York City in January or February? It's really cold. Alligators would not survive even the first winter. So you see, when you engage system 2, you realize that whatever you were saying through using system 1 was actually wrong very easily. But we don't, because even before system 2 wakes up, we have clicked retweet, and that false news actually spread. And again, this example of alligators may seem harmless, but I'm going to do the same exercise with a modern belief that's actually more scary. I'm sure you have heard of this belief of chemtrails. It's this theory that basically whenever you see one of these white contrails in the air, in the sky, when planes pass by, people who believe in chemtrails, they think that these are actually some sort of substances that the governments are actually releasing to the upper atmosphere to control us, to poison us, or to modify our behavior. Would you, would you retweet this news? Sure, I would. It sounds like X-Files. It sounds like, fun and, hidden knowledge and that kind of stuff. Sure, that's system 1. Let's go to system 2. Let's pause for 5 seconds and think about this. Let's imagine the government was really releasing, substances to the atmosphere to control our behavior. Why would they make them visible? Most gases are actually invisible. So why would they put the smoking trail and the smoking gun in the sky for everybody to see that they're doing this? Wouldn't it be easier to actually release the same thing with an invisible gas? You see? And now you believe, yeah, he's right. This sounds really silly. And that's the thing with opinions and pseudoscience. They work because we rely on system 1. As soon as we go with system 2, they fall apart really easily. And that's the problem, which is we don't use system 2. And the problem, in a nutshell, is that sure, science has the knowledge, but it whispers and it advances slowly. But emotion screams, and algorithms, which is the core of social media, they prefer the scream from the whispers. Let's talk about them now. Let's get this out of the way. Algorithms are not built to broadcast the truth. They're built for profit. Remember this, all social media such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, they are built by companies who want to make money. And the algorithm is the core of that money-making machine. Their job is that simple. They want you to keep looking at the screen because your attention and your time is money through selling advertisements and commercials. And so these companies make money by keeping you engaged. And these companies, of course, are impatient because they have shareholders and they have owners that they need to report to. For the sake of example, imagine you go into the meeting with Elon Musk and you say, hey, on Twitter, we're going to talk about science and about this theory that we hope to prove in the next decade. And Elon Musk, rightly so, will say, sure, fantastic, but you know what? I want my bonus of $1 billion this year. You see the difference? A company wants to make money, and science is not about money, it's about advancing knowledge slowly. There was a paper at MIT that proved that false news spread faster than real news, just because false news generates stronger emotions. When we are enraged, when we're in fear, we tend to share. And that's the reason why emotional news, even pseudoscience, spreads much faster than true news. Algorithms, they don't understand accuracy or ethics. They work on clicks, watch time, comments, shares. That's the metrics they use. And for those metrics, the math is brutal. Your outrage is engagement. Your fear is engagement. Your shock is engagement. And all these forms of engagement equal to profit. So if you write something that's true, the social media will show it. If you write nonsense, it will also show it. And if you write something toxic, it will also show it too. But the problem is, when it comes to profit, nonsense and toxic comment is actually much more profitable than the truth. And so we've built an outrage economy. An algorithm doesn't do what's right, it does what works to achieve the goals of the company. And typically what works is the loudest lie. So let's put it all together. What we have is a brain that loves fast emotional reactions. Second, science that's actually slow and methodical and cannot keep up. And third, algorithms that make money on your outrage. And what's the result of this deadly cocktail? The social collapse of the truth. We live in an era where people say, oh, this feels true to me, and that starts sounding louder than years of scientific research. We confuse the feeling of certainty with actual certainty. People will say, oh, if I feel this strongly, it must be true. But that's not the truth. That's just your emotions covered in a coating of good PR. And what's even worse, the less somebody knows, the more confident they seem to be. And that's what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Experts and scientists, they speak with nuance, they're subtle. They say, we know this, we don't know this, we need to do more research. Pseudo-experts, they speak with absolute certainty. And of course, on places like Twitter or TikTok, certainty, even if it's fake one, wins. Put a real expert beside one of these loud mouthpieces, somebody emotional that screams a lot, and the audience will often choose the second one over the first one. And trust me, I've lived this myself. I have been battling flat earthers on TV in my home country, Spain, many times. And you know what? Sure, they look convincing, they look correct, because their explanations are simple, their tone is confident, and their performance is entertaining. My facts, they're true, but my presentation is way more boring, so I cannot compete with them. And again, a flat earther is not dangerous, it's just, a silly belief. But there's other wrong opinions that can become deadly. When emotion replaces facts, you make decisions about health, money, or politics, for example. And one day, a madman kidnaps your emotions by saying that all the evils of Germany are caused by the Jews, and we know how that story ends. So again, we need to battle wrong opinions, we need to battle pseudoscience, because they hamper progress and they can become deadly. But to defeat the enemy, we need to understand its tactics really well. Pseudoscience is not a mistake, it's not improvised, it's a very carefully engineered product built to spread faster than the truth. Why? Because it uses 4 superpowers. Let's see them. First, it gives simple explanations. Science is complex, especially in the 21st century. All the new fields of science are not simple to understand. But of course, pseudoscience gives very simple answers that the layman can understand very easily. A scientist will come on TV and he will say, oh yeah, we have 12 variables, 2,000 participants, and we have a statistical significance of 95%. And beside him, the pseudoscientist will be yawning like, oh, and he will just say, baking soda cures COVID. And people will believe him because it's simple. The brain, as we've seen with System 1, loves simple answers even when they're wrong. Second, pseudoscience works because it's emotional. It plays on your fear, your hope, and your desire to feel special. Again, a scientist will come and he will say, oh, your disease is a combination of factors and it comes from a complex metabolic pathway. And again, the pseudoscientist will be yawning again and saying, they're poisoning you. And your emotion will explode. And when you feel emotional, you're more prone to share this with others, even if it's a lie. Third, pseudoscience works because it promises control. The world is chaotic, it's complex. And in that world of chaos and complexity, pseudoscience offers certainty. Let's look at the doctor, for example. He will tell you, we don't know everything about cancer. We don't know everything about Alzheimer's disease. But then compare that with the pseudoscientist that will offer you certainty. It will say, if you eat this, you'll never get sick again. Pseudoscience says, I know everything. So which one do you think the brain will prefer? Control or lack of control? Fourth, pseudoscience works because it creates tribes and identity. When you believe a false idea, that comes with a group of other people who think the same way. It can be the anti-vaccine groups, astrology channels, people who believe in conspiracy theories. That's not information, that's actually identity building. And once your opinion becomes part of your identity, it's impossible to change it no matter what the facts say. And that's the reason why it's impossible to change the opinion of a pseudoscientist. Whenever you try to do that, I have tried that myself, and I'm sure you have tried too, first, they will counter with their arguments. Then they will feel cornered and attacked. And third, they will become aggressive. Because to me, because I'm not a pseudoscientist, my opinions are not me. I'm a different person from my opinions. Let's say tomorrow they prove that relativity is actually wrong. I wouldn't break a sweat. I'm sure there will be a better theory coming in the future. But for a pseudoscientist, actually them and their opinions are equal and are the same thing. And that's the reason why it's impossible for them to change their minds, because if they did, they will break their feeling of who they are. And the more absurd the belief, the stronger the tribe. You can check out online lots of really weird beliefs that you would think, I cannot believe somebody believes this is true, and still they do. Just check out, for example, QAnon, for example. It's a really weird belief system, and it has thousands of followers in the US. Or flat earthers, they do have zero evidence, literally zero evidence, but they do feel special because they will repeat, oh, I know a secret that others don't. And that feeling of secret knowledge makes this falsehood actually bulletproof. So now that we have understood pseudoscience, let's go back to reality. There are events which are completely indifferent of our feelings. They exist whether we love them, fear them, or deny them. Those events is what we call facts. Gravity doesn't ask for your opinion, but some people live as if reality was negotiable, as if you could vote on physics, cancel biology, or feel offended by a fact as if it was going to disappear. But reality is not a democracy, it is a constant. There was a famous philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who once said, make sure your opinions are based on facts, and facts only. Facts are the pillars of everything from medicine, engineering, economics, safety, and freedom. And when a society stops trusting facts and it starts trusting emotion, then decisions are not made by logic, they're made by fear, not by data, but by panic. And here's the dangerous part. A society that rejects reality eventually falls apart. So if we want to stay free, healthy, and rational, we need to return to what's verifiable, provable, and real. And that is facts, that is reality. And so, of course, now I want to give advice on how we can live in this post-truth world. We cannot rewrite algorithms, we cannot accelerate science, we cannot turn off your emotions, but we can change the way we think because that's part of our culture. Once we become aware of system 1 and system 2, of algorithms and pseudoscience, we can apply principles to actually deflect most of these dangers and think in a more healthy way. So now I'm going to give you 6 principles to keep your mind clear in this world of emotion and rough reactions. First, learn to pause for a second. Whenever something arrives and it triggers a response from you of anger, fear, excitement, or any sort of emotions, just be aware that that's system 1 waking up. And remember, system 1 is fast, but it's actually prone to errors. So whenever this happens, handbrake. Wait for 5 seconds, wait for 10 seconds even, and take a look again at the news, read it again, separate your emotions from the facts, and form your opinion based on the facts, not in our emotion. So again, whenever in doubt, pause, breathe, take a look again. Second principle, always ask, where does this come from? What is the source? Not so much who said this, but what data supports this? Where is the data? Where is the replication? Where is the evidence? If there's no data and no evidence, that's an opinion. An opinion is not a fact, and you should never distribute opinions as if they were your own. Third, learn to separate facts from interpretation. Let's do this one with a very simple example. Let's say you read an article on climate change that says, temperature is increasing 2 degrees per year. Okay, that's a fact. That's something you can verify, and it can be true or it can be wrong. But let's say that that article continues and it says, we are doomed. You see, that's an opinion, that's an interpretation. So always take your mental scissors, separate the facts from the interpretation. That's something I try to do here at DECODE, which is only speak about facts and let you guys form your own opinion. Not my opinion, because I'm nobody to actually tell you what you should think. I'm here just to give you facts so that you can build your own mental model. Fourth, be skeptical, not cynical. This is two ways of thinking which seem to be related, but they have very different consequences. A skeptic is somebody who's constantly asking, how do you know this? What is the source? Is this true? What is the proof? That's a skeptic. Okay? A cynic is always going to say, oh, everybody is lying to you. Skepticism is a very good measure for protection of your mind so that you don't swallow all this incoming flow of data and opinions. Being a cynic actually shuts down your brain. And you may think, oh, no, but it's better to be shut down so they don't enter. That's wrong, because we always need to have an open mind attitude, skeptic but open, so that we can engage in dialogue. Whenever you shut down, it's exactly the opposite. What happens is that you're actually more prone to be invaded by emotions, and you can see that because many flat earthers and many pseudoscientists are actually very close-minded people. They're more cynics than they are skeptics. Fifth, never fight emotions, fight claims. Let's say you engage in a fight with somebody, a verbal fight, and they are screaming and yelling and there's anger going on and all that. You need to separate this part, the emotion and the volume and all that, from the facts and center your discussion on the facts, because if you actually try to respond to the emotion, most likely you will counter with even louder words, and that's going to become a spiral. It's like actually putting more fuel into the fire. What you need to do is calm down, ignore all these emotions, and just focus on the claims. And six, understand that reality is not your enemy. The basis of a lot of conspiracy theories is this idea of everything you read is a lie. They're manipulating you. And that's simply not true. Facts are not here to insult you, to punish you, or to manipulate you. They're here to guide you through life. They're actually a compass that keeps chaos away in life. So again, in summary, once you understand these 6 principles, you can put them in practice, for example, next week in a very easy way. What I would love you to do is anytime you begin reading news or you begin getting inputs from social media, just remember what we said. First, stop your system 1. Anytime you feel emotional, you feel angered, and you feel, oh, I'm going to respond right away, don't. Just stop for 10 seconds. And then begin doing all this analysis of who said this? What is the emotions on this? What is the manipulation tactics being used? What is the data? Is it actually supported by science, or is it just bullshit? And if the answer to any of this is I'm not sure, just stop sharing it. Let's not be part of this snowball effect that's actually making the internet a worse place day by day. This is a tiny step in discipline, and it's a personal rebellion against all the noise which is flooding our world today. Think about this. Reality will win anyway. Whether you like it or not, gravity will still be here. So the only question is, which side do you want to be on? As we've seen in this video, we live in an era where anyone can invent their own truth. But the truth, the real one, doesn't work that way. Truth doesn't change. It does not depend on the observer. Gravity is the same for each one of us, whether we like it or not. And so if we want to preserve freedom, fairness, and basic mental health for ourselves and for our societies, we need to make one effort in 2026, which is we need to return to reality. We spoke about the way pseudoscience generates this illusion of control, and that's a fake control because it's based on this idea that you control your own narrative. But that's wrong. You know what will give you an even better version of control, a sense of safety, and understanding of the real world? Embracing the truth, science, and facts. Because reality is the only thing that will never change when you look away. The question is not so much if you believe it or not. Again, we will keep evolving. Evolution will still be there, even if you don't believe in it. It's going to be here anyway. The question is whether you're willing to live your life with honesty and open eyes towards the truth. The truth doesn't make your life easier. What it does, it makes you stronger, more resilient, and it's actually a key pillar to keep a healthy society alive. So this 2026, we all need to make an effort to understand System 1 and System 2, of stopping System 1, of stopping reacting quickly to everything we read on social media, embracing System 2, slowing down, reflecting about things, and only sharing what we know is true. In a nutshell, we need to choose reality, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Thanks for watching. Again, this was my first video of 10 in which I'm going to share 10 powerful ideas for 2026. I started with the first one, which is this idea of opinions versus the truth and facts, and the way there seems to be a fight between pseudoscience and fake news and science and reality. It's a shame that we need to talk about this, but it's the world we live in. And if videos like this help us kind of get vaccinated against pseudoscience and against fake news, I think that's a great outcome. I'm going to be posting one video of this every 2-3 days, all the way from now to Christmas Day. So of course, if you subscribe to DECODE, you'll be notified when the next one drops in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on the next episode of DECODE. Thanks for watching. Bye.